What's up, everyone, and welcome to another installment of CEO at the Gas Pump. Hope everybody's having a great weekend this Saturday morning. Sun is shining bright. I wanted to come and give you guys a quick update. I've been haven't posted stuff in a couple of weeks, and understand that you got to keep dropping content, staying consistent with it, and and equally, it's a lot of important things that needed to be discussed that need to be talked about that I haven't seen too many people talk about, or I guess too many people from our generation talking about. It's a lot of the old heads talking about different things, but you know, and I guess that's kind of the part of the problem. It's a disconnect, between the older generation and the younger generation. A lot of older generation, they feel like the younger generation probably not too much listening to them. And it could be for different reasons. A lot of information that they have, we don't necessarily agree with. Like, for college, say, like me personally, if you're not being a brain surgeon or open heart surgeon, like, is college really necessary? You know, and I guess that's a biased opinion, whether you think that's is valuable or not. And if you're like me, I'm 30 years old, so I grew up in a time with technology advancing, and I was old enough and aware enough to be able to be like, okay, I could see how things pivot. Like, YouTube. I used to be 12, 13 years old, just on YouTube all day, scrolling, looking at battle rap videos and whatever else I had interest in. And then, coming up and seeing it evolve to seeing how they're pretty much the YouTubers are pretty much like the new Hollywood. They're the new celebrities. Kids are going crazy when they see Kai Sanat or or somebody of that name, Mr. Beast or somebody. But what I'm ultimately, focusing on, or the topic I would like to focus on, is the disconnect between the older generation and the younger generation, and also the significance of having a mentor. And me personally, I could speak from this from experience. I used to go to conventions, shout out to Recession Proof, shout out to Earn Your Leisure. I was at all those events. And, being in that environment, one thing that I always picked up was, having a mentor is pretty, significant if you want to, move further faster, because now you're working with people who already done it. You're working with people who's already successful, so they could help you avoid those unnecessary traumas that you may face, the unnecessary things that you may feel that is the correct way to do it, but in reality, it's a better way to do it. And as my mentor always tell me, if you change the way you look at things, the things that you look at will change. And I took in that to heart, because I realized a lot of times it is just the way we look at things. If I'm looking at it from this perspective and I'm thinking it's this, and that, but in reality, if I just switch the way I looked at things, that it could be better, or it could be, more proficient, or you could be more effective if you do it this way. And, understanding that there's different ways, to accomplish goals, and just being open-minded and being, flexible, and just being able to listen and trust. And as I always been told too, trust but verify. And that's what you could do, because now you get the information, and now that you did your homework and research and verified that's real, now you could move it with a certain conviction and certain confidence, because you understanding that the information that you're given is actually the correct information. And and not only having a mentor, but being a part of a community, being part of a community is big as well, because now you're not just resting on your own beliefs and your own biases. Now you can get opinions from everybody perspective, and having people who have perspectives from different arenas, so build that mastermind group, build that circle of like-minded individuals that want to go further, who have those goals. And that's like the most significant part to me is, having that community and having that tribe. It builds confidence in yourself, and it also lets you know that you don't have to do it alone. You know, every sport, basketball, football, yeah, they have a star player, you know, but everybody essentially have to play their role to make things work and make things happen. So, my question is to you guys, what do you feel is the biggest disconnect? Why why do you feel, or do you feel that you need a mentor? Do you feel that you could trust the older generation? Do you feel like they could provide you with guidance and information? Or is it that you don't know where to find the mentors at? Because that could be another thing. You don't know where to go to look for your mentors, right? You don't know where to go to find mentors, right? I started with uh SCORE. They have individuals who volunteer to pretty much, mentor you for whatever business, whatever industry you're in. They have different retired CEOs, retired individuals from different professions, where they can, where you could choose what industry and what you're looking for exactly. Not saying that's the best route, but that is one route for you to take. Also, another route could be, joining different groups where you could meet these individuals, and it could be just having that conversation with them, like, hey man, I'm a new person in this industry. uh I've been doing this and that and that, and I really just need guidance. Not saying that they're going to be free. You might have to pay, but that's the cost. It's the energy exchange, and it's worth it, right? If you want to go further, faster, you probably do whatever it takes to get there. Somebody could show you how to make $1 million, and they're charging you $10,000 to make that $1 million happen, and they already done it. Do you think that would be worth it? Personally, to me, it would be worth it. And I can tell you from a personal experience, and I laugh because now looking back at it, it's kind of funny. When I met my mentor, Mr. Walter Cotton, who's a service disabled veteran, wrote laws for small businesses, uh, doing big things. One of the guys, not one of the guys, but the guy, one of the top guys for government contracting, one of the big brains to make things happen, responsible for 150 billion. I never thought I would, be in the position where I'm being mentored by somebody like that. Like, to even know someone who actually wrote a law, got invited to the White House to write a law, get it passed through Congress, get it passed through Congress. So that means it's an actual statute that cannot be affected unless it goes through Congress again. That's something big. I don't know about y'all, but I don't know too many people who wrote laws. But what I'm saying is, I didn't know. I never knew I would be involved in a community like this. I just showed up to a webinar hosted by the VA, where he was presenting, and then another gentleman, Mr. William Randolph, another a person I interviewed also. Uh, if you haven't seen that interview, you could check back on my YouTube page, CEO at the Gas Pump, and check out those episodes. And yeah, just being able to meet those type of people was, the significance. When I met him, at the end of the webinar, they were like, they had a free he was giving a free consultation out to anybody who showed up to the webinar. So I took advantage of that free consultation, and I had that conversation with him as I was already looking into joint ventures. but I didn't know about it. I didn't know exactly, what it was, how to formulate it. I just knew that that could be a potential pathway for me to get into government contracting. So, I mean, the stars align perfectly, and I mean, everything happens for a reason, and I understand that. I better understand that now, and I just embrace it. But what I'm saying is the fact that sometimes it's just asking. It's the power of asking. The worst that they can say is no. So what you gonna do from there? You could stay persistent, keep reaching out, showing that you want it, and hopefully and eventually they say, man, this kid really, wants it. They really persistent with it. Sometimes you have to put forth that effort and initiative to show that you want it. Because honestly, if you're successful already, you got the most valuable thing you have is your time. Well, regardless if you're successful or not, the most valuable thing you have is your time, right? But when you at a certain level of success, you know, time is pretty much the most important thing to them. How can you save them time? How can you be more efficient? What value can you add? And I believe just staying persistent with it is pretty much the biggest key with anything in life. You gotta stay persistent with reaching out to people. You looking for that mentor. Yeah, they might say no. They might say no 2 or 3 times, but I'd say just stay persistent until they block you or don't answer your calls no more. And and that's okay because you just move on. That may not be the right person for you. It may not align like that for you because it wasn't the right mentor for you. And you know, just being able to show up to different things and different events and just having that conversation, could you mentor me? And I think we just have to connect with the older generation and the individuals that already successful who's one willing to mentor and give you that time and effort and put that energy and want to see you success, and two, people people who just have that good heart. They want to help their community. They want to help people who wear our social uniform, people who look like us. And that's what I always gravitated for. Not saying that's the only advice I would take or listen to, but I always gravitated to what I know, and what I'm comfortable with. And just being able to be surrounded by those individuals, I think is the most significant and an important part. So, if I had to leave one message with you guys, I would say to collaborate, partner, find that mentor, work with individuals who are already doing it, who's already successful in that space. You work with them, bring value to it. And you may say, what's my value? Your value is your hard work, your hard ethic, your ability to be able to think, your ability to be able to just put forth the effort, stay persistent in it, showing that you really want it, you know, because nobody's not going to just give you anything. You have to put in the work. And I mean, it's just that simple. You got to put in that work, stay persistent, and I will say one thing, and I'm telling you all this stuff from just personal experience. It's gonna be, you're gonna have your ups, you're gonna have your downs. You're gonna have your self-doubt sometimes. You're gonna be like, dang, man, is this for me? Am I, but you gotta stay persistent no matter what. And just know, long as you stay persistent, it's gonna always work out. And stay confident, stay true in your beliefs, stay firm, stay grounded, and just know that you got it. And that's my last message for you guys. And hopefully this helps somebody out there who's, lost, looking for a way. And hopefully this give you the motivation and inspiration to, proceed further. And if you guys got any questions or comments, please, leave a comment down below. And that way I could get back to you. Any questions, anything you guys want to discuss or know, drop it down in the comment. That way, we could get it answered on the next episode of CEO at the Gas Pump. And also, man, tell me some people who would you like for me to interview. What are some topics that y'all would want to talk about as far as being CEOs, as far as government contract, as far as knowledge, what is some things that y'all would really want to know that could help you go to the next level? Because that's what it's about. We got to come together as a collective at this point in time. It's much needed. We've been supposed to have done it, but it's more needed now. We need to come together. We need to come together with people who are ready to execute, who are, who want to bring stuff to the table and build infrastructures and just having a thriving economy. So uh until next time, guys, I'm Twan Hill, and this has been another segment of CEO at the Gas Pump. Until next time, y'all, I'm out.